Imagine a filing cabinet, 3 million pages inside. The government spent years telling you it didn't exist. Then one day they released it. Every page, every document, every secret, except hundreds of names, blacked out, gone. In January 2026, federal courts released the largest document dump in the history of the Jeffrey Epstein case. 3 million pages. Flight logs, financial records, witness testimony, names of people who visited his properties, names of people who called his phones, names of people who knew exactly what was happening, and the most important ones, still invisible. Think about what you just heard. They gave you everything and nothing. Here is the question burning through this right now. Who is powerful enough to stay hidden even after the files are open? What you are about to discover, most people will never connect. And once you hear it, you cannot unhear it. Jeffrey Epstein did not start powerful. He started invisible. That is what made him so dangerous. In the 1980s, he was nobody. A math teacher turned banker. No family money, no famous last name. Just a man who understood one thing better than anyone else alive. Powerful people need to feel like the most important person in the room. He gave them that feeling. He gave them access, introductions, solutions to problems they couldn't solve publicly. And slowly, one dinner, one flight, one favor at a time, he built something. Not a network, a web. And here is what nobody tells you. Webs are not built to catch one thing. They are built to catch everything that comes near them. By 2001, Jeffrey Epstein had a Manhattan mansion that used to belong to a billionaire. He had a private island in the US Virgin Islands. He had a ranch in New Mexico. He had a Paris apartment. He had a private jet, later called the Lolita Express by investigators. He had an address book with over 1,000 names inside. 1,000 names. Politicians, royalty, scientists, celebrities, business leaders. Every name in that book represents a connection, a relationship, a secret. And here is the question nobody has fully answered yet. Why were people like that spending time with a man nobody could fully explain? What did Epstein actually do for money? Nobody knows with certainty. Intelligence analysts, former insiders, investigative journalists, they've all asked. Some suggested he was managing money for ultra-wealthy clients. Others suggested something darker, that the money was almost beside the point, that the real currency was information. Little St. James, a private island in the US Virgin Islands. 80 acres surrounded by water. No unauthorized boats allowed near the shore. A temple-like structure on the hill that no one has fully explained to this day. Epstein bought it in 1998. And this is where everything changes. Survivors, brave women who came forward at enormous personal cost, described what happened on that island. They were young, they were vulnerable, they were failed by every system that was supposed to protect them. We will not sensationalize their pain. That is not what this is. What this is the question of who else was there. Flight logs, visitor records, staff testimony. These documents were locked away for years, and when pieces leaked, the names attached to those flights were not ordinary names. Former US presidents, a British prince, tech billionaires, Hollywood names, academic legends. Epstein's properties had extensive security camera systems, and Epstein never destroyed his records. Think about why a man would keep records of powerful people visiting him. Think about what those records are worth. Not to a court, not to a journalist, to the man holding them. That is power no election can give you. In 2005, a Palm Beach police detective named Joe Riccari began investigating Epstein. He was thorough, he was relentless. He built a case that should have sent Epstein to prison for decades. Instead, something happened that made legal experts across America stop breathing. Federal prosecutor Alexander Acosta gave Epstein a deal, a secret deal, a deal so unusual that Acosta himself later admitted federal prosecutors don't normally do this. Epstein pleaded guilty to 2 minor state charges. He registered as a sex offender. He served 13 months, with work release privileges that let him leave jail during the day. 13 months for what investigators described as one of the most extensive abuse networks they had ever seen. The world was not watching Epstein in 2008. The world was watching banks collapse. And he walked out of that Palm Beach jail and went right back to everything. The parties continued. The flights continued. The island continued. New introductions, new connections. The address book did not shrink, it grew. This is a story about how power protects itself in real time, while news cycles spin, while people are distracted, while the system designed to stop this quietly looks away. Here's a fact that should make you stop completely. The victims in his case, the women who were abused, were not told about the secret deal Acosta made. They were not informed. They found out later. Years later, a federal judge eventually ruled that deal violated their rights under the Crime Victims' Rights Act. A federal judge said the victims of this crime were hidden from their own case. Then in 2018, journalist Julie K. Brown published a series in the Miami Herald called Perversion of Justice. She did what federal prosecutors had not. She found survivors. She listened. She published. She named names. The story exploded. The silence cracked, and Jeffrey Epstein, the man who had lived untouched for a decade, was arrested in July 2019 at Teterboro Airport in New Jersey, stepping off his private jet. July 6, 2019, Jeffrey Epstein arrested. The case against them, sex trafficking, conspiracy, federal charges. Legal experts called it bulletproof. Survivor testimony, financial records, travel logs. The deal from 2008 already declared illegitimate. This time, no escape. Prosecutors were preparing for trial, and the trial meant one thing above everything else. Epstein would have to explain his relationships, the names in that address book, why powerful people flew on his jet, what happened when they got where they were going, who knew, who participated, who looked away. The people still hidden in those blacked out documents are people a trial would have exposed. On August 10, 2019, 36 days after his arrest, Jeffrey Epstein was found dead in his cell at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Manhattan. The official ruling? Suicide by hanging. Here is what was also true. The 2 guards assigned to check on him every 30 minutes did not check on him for 3 hours. The security cameras outside his cell malfunctioned that night. He had been taken off suicide watch days earlier, despite a previous incident in his cell just weeks before. His cellmate had been transferred out. He was alone. Epstein had reportedly told associates he feared for his life, and the security failures that night were so complete, so simultaneous, that the FBI opened its own investigation into what happened. The medical examiner who reviewed the case, Dr. Michael Baden, one of the most respected forensic pathologists in American history, stated publicly that the injuries were more consistent with homicide than suicide. This is where the anger in your chest is completely rational. Because whether it was suicide or something else, what followed has never fully been explained. After Epstein's death, the legal battle did not end. It intensified. Ghislaine Maxwell, his longtime associate, was arrested in 2020. She was tried, she was convicted in 2021 on sex trafficking charges. She is currently serving 20 years in federal prison. During her trial and in civil suits that followed, documents began to emerge. Names appeared. Some of those names were people you have heard of. Prince Andrew of Great Britain. He settled a civil lawsuit brought by Virginia Giuffre, one of Epstein's most prominent accusers, for a reported sum in the millions. He denied the allegations. The settlement contained no admission of guilt. Former US President Bill Clinton's name appeared in flight logs. His office confirmed he had flown on Epstein's jet. They denied any knowledge of wrongdoing. MIT Media Lab director Joey Ito resigned after it was revealed he had accepted donations from Epstein after Epstein's 2008 conviction. Multiple academics and institutions had done the same. Harvard University received millions from Epstein. So did MIT. So did institutions that pride themselves on moral leadership. Then came January 2025. Federal courts, responding to years of legal pressure, released approximately 3 million pages of documents connected to the Epstein case. 3 million pages. Civil suit depositions, financial records, communication logs, witness testimony, flight manifests with passenger names, internal documents from Epstein's organization. Journalists and researchers began working through the files immediately. And here is what they found. Hundreds of individual names blacked out, redacted, invisible. Names that appeared in context suggesting deep connection to Epstein's operations. Names attached to communications that investigators described as significant. Names that would answer the questions that have burned in the public for years. Active investigations, ongoing litigation, privacy protections extended by judges, legal arguments that releasing certain names before charges are filed could compromise future prosecutions. These are real legal arguments. Courts have accepted them. Some of those same protections were used in cases that were later quietly closed. Some of those investigations that justified the redactions were never pursued. And the people whose names are hidden do not have to prove they did anything wrong to stay hidden. They simply have to argue that releasing their names is premature. You can be protected by a process, not by innocence. Here is the question that has no comfortable answer. We have 3 million pages. We have convictions. We have settlements. We have testimony from survivors who risked everything. We have a dead man who was going to trial. We have security failures that have never been fully explained. We have institutions, universities, governments, royal households that accepted money from a convicted sex offender and kept accepting it. And we have hundreds of names still hidden. People are not staying hidden because the system failed. Some are staying hidden because the system is working exactly as designed. Laws that protect privacy, rules that govern what courts can release, processes that move slowly enough that public attention shifts before verdicts arrive. And here is the moral dilemma this puts you in right now. Some of those redacted names may be innocent, people whose names appear in documents through proximity, not participation, people who could be destroyed by association alone. The law that protects them is the same law that protects you if you were ever falsely named in a document. And yet, some of those names, statistically, given what we know about the scale of this, belong to people who participated in real harm, who used power to escape accountability, who are today in positions of influence, perhaps making decisions that affect your life, and you do not know who they are. Every generation has a moment where it discovers the gap between what power promises and what power does, between the institutions we are taught to trust and the behavior those institutions sometimes protect. The Epstein case is not unique in history. It is unique in scale. It is unique in documentation, and it is unique in how fully it has shown us in real time what happens when wealth and connection meet accountability. The survivors in this story did not stay silent because they were weak. They stayed silent because every system around them made silence feel like survival. When they finally spoke, some of them were not believed for years. That is the truth underneath the truth. Not just that powerful people did terrible things and got protected, but that the protection worked in parts because the people with the least power were not fully heard. Subscribe if you believe these stories deserve to be told completely, because the next video goes somewhere even the Epstein files haven't touched. There is a second network, a second set of names, a second story that connects to this one in a way that will make everything you just learned feel like only half the picture. Question 2, the one we planted in the first 60 seconds and never answered, still burns. How many people in positions of power today were in that address book and have never been asked a single question about it? We are still looking.